welcome to the Stereoscope podcast number 13.
Lucky number 13.
Ooh, yikes, I know, right? So it's a little bit of a lighter news week. I think everyone is sort of terrified about what's going on around us to really do anything.
Terrified?
I'm terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought.
Yeah.
It's a healthy place to be.
Yeah. The slores and all that being roasted.
No, that's yeah. You don't know what we're talking about. You'll never know what we're talking about.
The Gen Xers probably do, but all right. So I'm Byron.
I'm Anthony.
I'm Sean.
And we have like I said, we have a little bit of a lighter episode, but we have some more in-depth topics this time. So we're going to start it off with James Cameron and Boz, the CTO of Meta, talk about 3D video on Boz's podcast, Boz to the Future, sort of a podcast talking about a podcast, it's podcastception.
How meta can you get?
How meta can you get, indeed. So this one is interesting because obviously James Cameron is a luminary in the 3D field. He's been around. And
4 million years. 5 million years.
I mean, we talked about him a couple episodes ago about how he got started with T2 3D back in the day, and then obviously went on to Avatar and the never-ending Avatar sequels. Mm-hmm. But also, I think it's really relevant because Meta earlier late last year announced that there was going to be a partnership between Meta and James Cameron's company Lightstorm, and through time we've sort of figured out that Lightstorm is a 3D, so not immersive video, but like what Apple calls spatial video, which is just side by side.
Once again,
3D.
If we go back in time, we rewind the clock from, if we look at the terminology, the evolution of virtual reality, it has a lot of names. Virtual, mixed, spatial.
Yeah, and a lot of the names that people use are conflicting and competing names. So.
Which is why we are so here for you and so confused.
Yeah, but we help you
define
reality effectively.
Yeah. So what is James Cameron?
So what Lightstorm Entertainment is doing and why this is relevant is because they're trying to build some sort of pipeline, sort of system to make 3D video more accessible, because for James Cameron, what he realized and what this video, the podcast, is largely about is him coming to the realization that headsets are the end game for the types of content that he creates. And that watching in a theater, he talks about the experience of authoring this content on a perfect
resolution, perfect fidelity.
Yeah, like a Dolby Vision screen.
Basically a laboratory.
A laboratory with the best luminance with the best luminance values and the brightest screen that you could possibly get for watching 3D movies. And so they're in the lab watching these 3D movies in an absolutely optimal scenario, and then they go into the theater.
Then they go into the walk down to the local Regal, get their popcorn, and go, I can't see.
Yeah, and obviously that was a very frustrating experience for him. And so when he first found that VR headsets were being used to watch 3D movies, there was an aha moment. And now he has a new target market for his 3D movies. And as someone who, I've always been a fan of 3D movies. The first 3D movie I ever saw was Captain EO 3D back at Disneyland in the early 90s. Before it was even Honey, I Shrunk the Kids 3D.
Ooh, yeah.
Which was also one of the first 3D movies I saw. And then living in San Diego, going to the Room and H Fleet Space Center, they had 3D movies. And then eventually seeing T2 3D. I'm a big fan of 3D movies, but I've always felt experience of watching one at a movie theater, except for very, very specific circumstances, of which I'll get into, was incredibly disappointing. Especially since the type of 3D and the type of rotoscoping that they were doing, which is, for anyone who doesn't know,
We'll get to that.
rotoscoping is the process by which you create a 3D depth map from, or fix 3D depth maps for times when the stereo isn't completely perfect. So a lot of 3D movies are fixed in post, but the worst ones are completely done in post. They're not shot in 3D historically.
Example. Good example.
Clash of the Titans. That is a
Oh,
famously bad
Yeah.
3D post conversion.
Not the best adaptation of a classic work of Greek art tragedy.
Yeah.
Well,
You
and
can
so
tell, like when you're watching a badly done movie, you're like, this doesn't look right.
and what you can tell is that there's not a sense. So the worst 3D post conversions, it feels like there are distinct layers, but there is no
Actual depth.
There is no actual depth.
Like
It's
when
just like it's like a paper cutout in front
Yeah.
of a paper cutout, with no nuance to the depth. Clash of the Titans being the most widely maligned example of this. However, when you get true shot 3D with bespoke separate cameras, usually that's pretty good. But sometimes they still need to be cleaned up with rotoscoping. So what Cameron is talking about in this is partially that that process of rotoscoping is incredibly time consuming. And so Lightstorm Entertainment is sort of working on this merging of post-production tools and shooting with bespoke 3D images. And he's talking about using AI to sort of
Not to kill us
merge
all.
the fields. Yeah, and there are some tools that already exist that we've tried out. You've used it more than I have.
Yeah, Owl 3D is the only one I've actually used.
Yeah, Owl 3D.
Which works really, really well until it doesn't. But it mostly works really well.
It seems to me that because I tested it recently on Revenge of the Sith, and it worked for certain shots, but then there were some shots with like smoke and that type of thing,
Right.
which it absolutely didn't know how to do, and then created weird artifacts where like depth that shouldn't have depth, or the smoke had like weird holes in it and that type of thing.
It's very interesting. Like, so my experience more specifically was doing like actual scenes and things like that I'd shot in 2D. Anything that was hanging or protruding off of the body would get thrown off. Like, if you were wearing glasses and you turned this way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The
or like
frame
this,
of the glass,
or this like this hair strand right here.
Maybe, yeah. Depending on, it just depends on how it always was foreign objects, like a bracelet hanging off of somebody's wrist would get sent to the background. Same thing with like part of the glasses, and so you have this break. But outside of that, if there's no things hanging off the person, the depth is dramatically nice. Like, it's very pleasing, actually.
Yeah.
So your lightsaber would be an issue.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, and I guess I got off track there for a second. What Cameron was saying was that the 3D in theaters isn't great, and that's why they need rotoscoping, and working from getting a distinct like
feed per eye. That's the big
one
big
image per
advantage.
eye, exactly.
The big advantage is that you're not like in theaters. If you don't know, watching 3D movies, or even at home watching 3D movies,
You don't have
not in a headset.
crosstalk.
Yeah, you either have these polarized glasses or shuttered glasses, were like the best version of it. Either way, you're trying to force your brain into thinking it's 3D based on like doing this basically very quickly.
Yeah.
And it always creates eye strain, and it never really works that well.
And it also every other method increases the brightness dramatically,
Decreases.
or decreases.
Yeah. So this is the other big problem. is
Yeah. But with a VR headset, you get the full image, you get the full brightness.
It's an individual feed per eye, so you just don't have the eye strain.
And so
So wait.
yeah.
Back to the T800. James Cameron
Yeah.
just got on Boz and talked about his new workflow, his new vibe. Full picture, both eyes.
Well, that's why
Bloviated
he's
blendering.
seen VR as the future, is because it's the optimal way to watch it. The only VR
In a theater.
Not
Is
in a
not
theater.
optimal.
Yeah.
In James Cameron's vision.
The best 3D that I ever saw was at a Dolby Vision theater when Star Trek Beyond came out in 2016.
Ooh.
It was the first Dolby Vision 3D I'd ever seen, and it was incredible because Dolby Vision uses laser vision, and they use two distinct projections, so one per eye.
Right.
So it has the maximum brightness you can get, and it was truly immersive. However, it was still using polarized glasses,
Right.
so there was a little bit of
Eye
crosstalk.
strain, yeah.
It looked amazing, but then I saw VR versions of 3D movies, and I was like, oh wow,
I had a
this
similar-
is so much more.
Similar thing, but with Gravity. Gravity was the
Exactly.
one that was like, wow, this is great. This is well done in 3D.
Yeah.
But still, you kind of have a little bit of a headache at the end.
I mean, it is interesting to hear how much the talk about AI was in this. I mean, it makes sense because James Cameron has invested in some AI companies, and obviously Meta has their own AI implementation, which is they are, as everyone are leaning very hard into. And there is some talk in this video about uses of AI for creative purposes. I'll be very honest. I do not agree with where they land on
With generative.
with generative. Yeah. I think there was a little bit more nuance in there than I expected them to go with, but I still very vehemently disagree with the way that they
And you can
sound like they're
vehemently
okay with
disagree as
using it.
well with the link that we may or may not provide in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a lot of different takes on it. I mean, being creatives, I think we have very specific takes on it.
Certainly. I don't know if we want to get into it here, but I think
I mean, we've made our feelings known over the past
yeah,
several episodes.
people can figure it out.
People know.
I just generally don't think that we should be using AI to create art, unless it is in an assistant mode.
Yeah, it's the way that it works right now, too, especially because, like, it's not really AI. It's, like, artificial. It's, like, intelligent copying, really. It's
And
just
that's some
taking-
of my biggest issues with what they get into, and is that they talk about the inputs rather than the outputs, and they don't have very nuanced ideas about the people that they're hurting with stealing the input.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, really, like, when you think about the current, what we keep calling AI, is really, like, brute force creativity.
Yeah.
And so you have to, like, boil the ocean. I mean, what was Sam Altman recently said it costs them tens of millions of dollars because people say please and thank you. So maybe the model's not so good if it's that inefficient.
Yeah, and, well, mind you, I'm guessing that's like because hundreds of millions of people are asking it that.
I mean, it is. I mean, I don't think they actually have that many people using it. I think it's just like literally
throughout the entire world.
They do have hundreds of millions of GPUs all burning many.
right.
Okay, maybe
right?
tens of millions.
Yeah,
It
because I
just-
don't
yeah,
think their user base is actually
Certainly, our
I mean,
politeness is definitely
Around the whole
come out.
world? Maybe not in the United States, but like
I mean, the thing is, that there's a lot of other AIs out there, though, right? Like
that's true.
Yeah,
And it seems like their people are a lot more polite.
Sure. Yeah.
but it's just a good example of how inefficient the whole thing is. I mean, getting into DeepSeek, I mean, they proved that you could do almost the exact same thing with like a tenth of the resources. So
Yeah, but a
just
lot
brute
less
force
of
shit out it.
the training wheels and safety guards.
How so? Like,
Oh, there was a lot of evidence that DeepSeek doesn't have the safety guards that the other models do. It could be propaganda, but
yeah, who knows?
But
I mean, that's the
also-
thing. They need to besmirch it because they're like, wait a minute.
yeah.
But it speaks to a point that deregulated, unregulated AI is in an industry that's struggling. Seems like it could Skynet us back to the future.
Well, it's going to Skynet the industry for sure. I mean, we're already seeing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're already inside the matrix.
Yeah. So I mean, so it was just interesting to see this. I think there's a lot of good that they're talking about this video, and some stuff where I'm just like, come on, guys, like James Cameron should know better than this in some ways. Boz, I'm not surprised at all, but it is, especially when they're talking about the filmmaking specifically. I think it's very interesting to see that how much they're relying on the VR headsets to sell 3D video specifically. And I think we realize that these headsets are going to be used more and more over time for video watching. I mean, that's why this podcast exists.
Yeah, literally. It's good to see James Cameron has finally reached the conclusion that we did 4 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know...
welcome, James.
We helped.
Yeah. Anyways,
Anyway, that's the future of.
I think we could probably move on. We're going with a little bit more meta news.
We're going to move on from meta news to more meta news.
So this is sort of not surprising. It's a little bit like our going back to our like XR glasses video from a couple months ago. Meta's new smart glasses with a display. So we first heard they're called the like product name.
The code name?
The code name is Hypernova. And sorry, I'm fighting a cold, so like my head is like a little swimmy.
And soon I will have that cold.
Yeah, we will all. It's our
This
cold.
is the cold distribution system.
Yeah. So they're expecting it to launch in late 2025, between $1,300 and $1,400.
That's 13 to 14. What?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's like as much as a smartphone, pretty much.
Yes, not pretty much. It is.
Flagship. like
that is up there with a flagship.
where our flag means death.
But supposedly they're heavily integrated with AI, and they're also going to have cameras. They're also going to have like gesture-based controls, but they'll also have like sort of like swipey UI, sort of like MacDoc, or like if you've ever used the Oculus interface. I doubt that it'll have hand tracking, but you'll swipe around on your temples or anything like that. But there's the reason why this is interesting is because there's going to be a monocular display in the lower right-hand corner.
Oh, yeah.
So I was sort of wondering when Meta would ship a display glasses form factor, because all the other companies seem to be having a lot of very, very quick success, specifically like X-Real.
Yeah.
With these glasses form factors. And obviously, the Meta Ray-Bans have been a gigantic hit for them. I didn't think it would be a monocular display.
Why not? Why not monocular, which is the opposite of binocular?
Well, because why do a monocular when you can do binocular? Like,
it's like they're like, just don't call it Google Glass, please don't call it.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that like when you think about it, the closest thing to it is the Google Glass, which had famously a small display up in the upper right hand corner, which launched. What was that? 2011?
Definitely
2010.
Yeah,
Yes,
somewhere around there.
Somewhere
Yeah.
around 2010.
But then was like the glass holes thing,
Yeah.
which I don't think is really going to be as much of an issue these days.
I mean, it helps that they package them up nicely, right? Like, these don't look...
Well, and also,
those look
we
like
live in a
cyborg.
world now where everyone has their phone camera out
Yeah.
almost at all times. Like, if you see like a Gen Z that's out in the world...
That's not us.
There is a very good chance that they have their camera out.
Yeah.
So a monocular display on the right side, is it configurable? Can you put it on the left if you're like...
No, so
gosh.
it's going to be hardware baked in.
Oh, no, that's going to definitely take out a certain percentage of...
But I do think it is... I think they're trying to figure out what is the potential market for these display glasses, how is it going to work, and really dip their toe in before they'd go full binocular. Because once they get into binocular, there's going to be an expectation there. And also, these glasses seem to be these aren't like video glasses.
Right.
These are smart glasses that have a display.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's designed around input, not output.
Yes, exactly. So this is like integrating social features into your life, having a small heads-up display for like turn-by-turn directions, stuff that we talked about on the other episode. But this is not like the X Reels where you're watching movies on them or.
Yeah, this is for like driving, working, and like being in like.
Yeah.
I don't imagine it being like used for door dashing. Not even joking. Because there are hundreds of times where I've seen like a DoorDash delivery guy, girl, gal, robot, kind of just not be able to find the door because it's dark. There's a complex. You live in a nice development, and it's really difficult to find that. But if it could just be, if it could just be a little bit, less wandering in the parking lot, more just hot food. I think that's what they're trying to do. I mean, that's the market as I see it.
Yeah, among others. I mean, I saw one video the other day that was like, it was a school bus driver who was like constantly dealing with cars passing with they had a little stop sign out and people still blowing by and they're like, oh, recorded with my Meta glasses. And it was like really interesting because it's really more like a dash cam for your face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see, I've been seeing the implementation of the Meta Ray-Ban glasses a lot of people at conferences or at events where they're not allowed to bring in a camera. Everybody still brings their smartphone, but
can't be out there like this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so like the Nintendo Switch 2 launch happened in New York City a couple weeks ago, and Wolf Den, one of my favorite video game YouTubers, they weren't allowed to bring in cameras, but he brought his Ray-Bans and just recorded his interaction with the console. So he was like recording himself playing it, and the footage looked great.
Yeah,
it was a very good implementation of that tech for this specific use case.
Right.
Yeah, it makes me sort of wonder, like, I wonder if we could get stereo. Are there any stereo versions of these?
I mean, it's a little bit more challenging because by nature of it, especially like this type of design, your IPD will always be off. It'll be too wide.
It would be a little bit too wide,
so unless you put
which would
cameras here or here,
create a hypo stereo effect.
Right. That's where their roadmap, which was leaked earlier this year, kind of reveals that all those fine tune all that data that they need to figure out what is the solution to the fact that we all have different eyes, faces, and brains. Like if the entry barrier is I don't want to put those because I hear people throw up all the time, and you can say no, this is different, then okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. Why? Because I hate looking at my maps, or I want to go into Comic-Con and I don't want to I don't want to take off these prescription glasses.
It's funny that you mentioned Comic-Con because when I was at the Star Trek convention last year, the first night that we were there, I saw a guy wearing Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
Did they say?
And he was like, "I'm recording right now, just FYI, so you know." I was like, "Oh, whoa, okay, that's cool."
Did he go to see the trailer for Predator?
Well, this was at the Star Trek convention, not Comic-Con.
Okay.
So this was Vegas, the real one, not the. I mean, Comic-Con is real, but anyways,
in
moving
my universe, on. They both exist in the same.
So
universe.
Supposedly, Meta is already working on a successor to the Hypernova, which will have a binocular display. So they are shooting for it long term, but apparently they just haven't cracked that code yet, which I don't know.
They're also working on some Oakleys, right?
They're like $100 billion company. I feel like they could do it.
Yeah, well, spending all that money on AI instead.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I guess probably time to move on. Okay, so this is excuse me. This is interesting. Apple Immersive Video Utility. So we covered something sort of similar to this a couple months ago, but that was like an external like
a
a third
homebrew
party.
app.
Yeah, that was a.
And it was an
Outside
Apple
third
Vision,
party,
yeah,
yeah.
but it was an Apple Vision Pro app.
Was it the spatial, or is it a different thing?
No, it was the one.
That would
It was
allow
like
you to-
CapCut for yeah.
Yeah.
Which episode was that?
I don't remember.
Darn it.
It was
It
like
wouldn't-
3
I
episodes
think it was
ago.
11. I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
11. Like,
Okay, algorithm. Please link up this version to the 11th stereoscope.
that's me. I'm going to be editing this. I'll just put the title.
Yeah, you are the algorithm. Anthony is our homegrown algorithm.
He's our basilisk.
He's
our
an
ambassador
organic
to the
algorithm, if you will.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, so Apple has their own new app that they released, Apple Immersive Video Utility, and this is sort of like iMovie, but for Apple Vision Pro.
Right.
Yeah, so
So very similar functionality to those.
so it's like importing, organizing, and reviewing your footage that you take either with your Apple Vision Pro or I wonder.
Can you take it
Or with
with
you, so does it only edit spatial video and not immersive? Because if it's
No, it says it also does up to 8K
okay,
180.
yeah,
So it looks like it's a general VR 180 and spatial video editor. They can also connect directly to the Vision Pro to stream immersive videos. That's really
That was the major thing.
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, wow, with options for synchronized playback and multi-device viewing sessions.
It's like a group.
That's
app, yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So
you
is
can
that like
connect it-
co-watching or?
Right, exactly. It's like the movie theater experience, but you're not even in the same room necessarily, and yet it can. It's synced. It's like it's so different than what we're used to, right? We're used to. Have you seen the last episode of so and so? And yeah, but I didn't see it the same time you did. Whereas, flashback 10, 15 years ago, we would have to go to the bar to see the
Yeah.
Right,
finale. Of
right.
Supposedly, Apple. This is literally just for Apple Immersive Video, and spatial is included. Interesting.
Yeah.
Ivory has enabled eye tracking on PSVR 2 for PC. So in the last episode, we talked about the price cut for the PSVR 2, which has sort of rebooted the PSVR 2's existence, and this solidifies it in that. So one of the things that we talked about last time was that the PSVR 2 was lacking features on PC, and so it was still a good buy because there is very little else on the market that compares at a price point. But I was, maligning the fact that, it didn't have eye tracking, it didn't have HDR, it didn't have the haptic support. But now they've enabled both eye tracking and limited HDR support, though that one is with a major caveat.
But eye tracking does seem like that's a step into the playing field, being like, hey, I learned how to lay up. Is that okay?
That is a huge feature to have at this price point. So Ivory is a third-party dev who got this working through their own custom firmware, which they sell the driver support through Steam. And so you can buy the custom firmware.
So it's $399.
$399.
It was cut by $150.
Cut
from
by $150. Okay.
$550,
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Multiplied by the Greek value of the tariff divided by the X qualification of the foveated blendering, it's probably going to be...
So technical, Sean.
Yes.
You sound
Shit,
like...
pause the tariffs for 90 days.
Yeah.
So this implementation is custom firmware. So it's not going to work out of the box unless you
Yeah.
get some extra, juice in there. And it's not going to be supported by a lot of things because it hasn't existed thus far. But what this will enable is things like eye-tracked foveated rendering, which we have talked about previously.
Yeah, it's my favorite words.
And so that's dynamic foveated rendering. This could also allow for eye tracking control of your interface, though there currently isn't any implementation of that in any of the various interfaces on PC, though I'm guessing somebody will most likely code that into Steam VR, because pretty much everything gets integrated into SteamVR.
And while they're at it, they'll try to work with the luminance levels and try to get HDR to fix with.
Yeah, so that is another thing that is going to have to be added that is not currently supported, is that they got the 10-bit color working for HDR, but currently SteamVR does not support custom luminance levels. So half of the implementation of HDR is broken.
It's up to you to fix it.
Yeah, so literally somebody in the community is going to have to figure out how to implement or get Valve, which is actually the more likely scenario, to get Valve to support dynamic luminance levels in SteamVR.
They'll probably do it.
They most likely will, because
why not? It's just more eyes on there.
Well, and here's the other thing: is it's almost certainly going to be implemented into the Deckard in some capacity.
And it's all crossplay. It's Steam. Like that's the whole point.
They win either way. That's the beauty.
Yeah, and you know, the Steam Deck has an OLED panel, so there is. I don't know if it supports HDR though. Interesting. So Steam is going to have to work this stuff out eventually, most likely for the Deckard. This is all speculation. So they'll probably end up putting it into SteamVR at some point.
I hope Sony stays in their lane. Doesn't try to.
So the only thing that's lacking thus far is the haptic support for the headset. I'm not sure if they've got it working on the controllers actually.
But it does work on the headset. I didn't know until recently.
No, it does not work on the headset.
Oh, it does not work on the headset. But
Yeah.
I did not know that until recently.
That it even had haptics. That the
Yeah.
headset had haptics. Yeah.
Well, and some people have said that, because I haven't played Call of the Mountain on PSVR 2, but in that it shakes your head when you get like hit. It sort of sounds gimmicky.
Yeah.
Sounds
But
traumatic.
some people said that it heavily increased immersion.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
like, to be fair, everything sounds gimmicky. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about sounds gimmicky until you experience it. You know?
I like hashtag
sure, yeah.
gimmickly.
gimmickly. It goes along with bloviate.
We got a lot of mush mouths today,
Bloviated hashtag gimmicky.
myself included. Yeah, so it's interesting that this has been enabled because it sort of very much solidifies sort of the reboot and resurgence of the PSVR 2. We're going to see a lot of people purchasing the headset for PC, and I mean, I think I'm going to finally, because now that they've got eye-tracked foveated rendering, that's going to help with performance on PC for certain games. Like we actually didn't include this, but it was announced that Microsoft Flight Simulator is permanently adding directly integrated dynamic foveated rendering into the game. So now it at a low level it will support dynamic foveated rendering, which is great because Microsoft Flight Simulator
Is your jam.
is ridiculously powerful in terms of it requires
A lot of resources.
a lot of resources to play that game correctly.
including a pilot's license.
And so you need to you really need to eke out every frame on that game, and adding dynamic foveated rendering will help with that quite a bit.
The question is, will you be able to tolerate
The-
going back in time and dealing with Fresnel lenses?
I mean,
We always forget about that big caveat.
probably, like I will say I booted up my PSVR 1 a couple months ago, and I used it for the first time in a really long time, and I was surprised at how good it looked still, mostly because when I play on PC, I've gotten so used to streaming and the streaming artifacts, the built-in compression.
Right.
It just has that look to it.
Right.
So you're used to flying blindfolded.
I'm used to flying with like a little veneer of blockiness.
Yeah.
Through all of, at least when I'm playing on PC.
Right.
When I'm just like playing Quest 3 stuff, it looks great. But yeah,
But you also have a pilot's license.
no,
Oh, it expired?
it expired like 15 years ago.
Fine.
All right, moving on. Blackmagic finally fully revealed the Blackmagic Ursa Immersive at the NAB show, which is the National Association of Broadcasters. It's a large, like broadcasting convention.
I mean, it's like a lot of things like that. It's
a trade show.
Yeah, it's just another place that like camera companies announce cool stuff.
And it's usually the big one for the year for cameras.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we've sort of gotten like peaks and glimmers of information from the various influencers over time, and still to this day, actually, that's the only place where we've seen video of the device. I was actually looking for some in-house videos from Blackmagic of the camera, and they have yet. There are promotional stills, which you're seeing behind you, but there aren't any official videos yet, which is frustrating because I wanted to include some videos, and I don't try to include third-party other influencers' content in our videos. So
because that would destroy the algorithm.
I don't know. It just. But we do have some high-quality stills of the camera behind us,
and it looks really cute, if I must say. If we're what?
It's a chunker, I can tell you that.
How much is it?
$30,000, $29.99, $95.
Yeah.
That's
So that was
like,
pre-tariff anyway, so we don't know exactly.
Yeah.
how much is a camera that, like, I don't know, James Cameron would want to use in the year 2000?
Well, and we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Is
Expensive.
that a cinematic like a professional cinematic camera is $100,000?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason we use the term camera package, because there's like always these components. So what's impressive about this is how much you basically have a ready to shoot situation out the gate for $30K, whereas something like, you could get a Red Raptor for 2025, somewhere in that range, but then you got to add batteries and lenses and adapters and wireless
And all these
transmission,
things add up.
media cards, all that stuff. This thing's got 8 terabytes of storage built in. It's got 10G networking built in. It's got the lenses built in.
And the 8 terabytes, that's hot swappable, right?
I don't know if it actually don't. I mean, you're not going to be recording. It's hot swappable in that you don't have to shut the camera down to swap it out.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah. But yeah, it's basically an array of M2 drives. And they have a 16 terabyte option available.
And we learned a couple months ago that you can work directly off of the drives.
Yes, that's the 10G networking that's in it means you plug it in, it's on your network, you can start pulling footage directly off of it.
That's very impressive.
That's a big deal.
In real time. Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Like we have, we're using 10G it, but I don't have, SSD storage. So it's still, like when you hit 10G, the bottleneck, unless you have SSDs, is the drives, which is kind of crazy.
Which we have learned.
Yeah.
So you could like theoretically plug this into like a RAID server. You could plug it in, plug and play.
You don't need a RAID server. That's the
It is its own.
You plug it
RAID
into your
server.
switch and you bring it up on your computer and you're editing.
Yeah. So we'll just go through a little bit of the like specs because it's pretty impressive. So it's got dual 8K sensors.
Yeah.
It's got 8K stereoscopic recording at 90 frames per second, which is the highest that I've ever seen. 16 stops of dynamic range, which incredible. And this is a big one, and there's some spiciness here. Is fixed focus pre-calibrated lenses.
Yes.
Some people are not a fan of this, but working in VR video, this is almost required.
Yeah, I mean, having a lens that the R5C lens here, the 5.2 mil, has variable focus, and it's more of a pain than it's worth.
Yeah,
and you're constantly
because
on it. And
because it will drift away. You have to for every single shoot, you have to calibrate.
Yeah. We're
Plus
not every, but I mean, it's not very. It's kind of delicate. There's like some prisms in there, and so they'll get out of whack, and every now and then you got to tweak the lenses, the interfocal. It's not great. So this locked in. My biggest like fear or whatever is like we don't really know what aperture they picked. It's a fixed aperture as well.
Yeah, and they haven't said yet.
They won't say. They're apparently like literally like I've seen a couple of videos. I think Hughes was one of them where they will ask over and over, and then there'll be a jump cut, and they'll be talking about something else.
Hey, don't ask about that.
They're like,
What do you think a good aperture would be? Just
I mean,
for
if I was to
who's
shoot in the dark 5.6, that would be my guess. Somewhere between 4 and 5.6, where it's like sharp enough, because you need to have enough depth of field to have focus from, they're saying like 1 meter to infinity is what they say it is.
But they even said that you could get even closer.
Yeah.
Right. There's like some, just by observation, they're just claiming 1 meter. But by observation, you can get closer than that, which again would lead me to believe that there's a pretty stop-down aperture, which makes it really, like, my biggest concern or curiosity anyway about this is how's it going to do in low light? Because you're already running at 90 frames per second, which is way cutting down the amount of light you can take in. Then you have a fixed aperture. So you really, the only thing you can do is play with shutter angle and ISO to get a brighter image out of it.
Necessity is the mother of creativity.
Yeah, but I'm because I work with B-RAW a lot, and they have 16 stops of dynamic range, stuff like that. I think it's going to be fine. Clearly, they wouldn't put out something that's just unusable in anything other than the brightest lights. So
yeah,
Blackmagic knows what it's doing. I don't think that they're the kind of go, oh shit, pause the tariffs for 90 days.
Yeah.
So it also has built-in ND filters, clear, 2-stop, 4-stop, and 8-stop. A fold-out 5-inch HDR touchscreen monitor. That's nice.
That's along with the one on the assistant side on the other side of the.
Oh yeah.
It looks like a little robot with.
It's got stereo microphones and 2 XLR inputs. 12G SDI Ethernet and USB-C ports. High-speed Wi-Fi antennas, 8 terabyte. That's the hot swappable M.2 SSDs that you're talking about. B-RAW, and so this is a little bit. This part is almost certainly why the camera exists. Is that it has Apple Vision Pro integration, which is the camera system was designed with this in mind from the ground up. So it's designed to maximize Apple Immersive Video. Ursa Immersive offers lifelike 180-degree stereoscopic imaging. So what this means is that the camera was designed to work in tandem with Apple Vision Pro at a system level.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Because
it's hard to describe because there's nothing really like it.
And there's a pipeline, like DaVinci Resolve is part of this pipeline.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating because the whole thing is metadata driven.
So yeah, you were telling me about this a couple days ago, which is that like rather than having everything flattened into one image,
right?
A lot of the effects and the exposure control.
I wouldn't say exposure control, but like specifically the unwrapping is one of the things that happens.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
So like you can feed an unwrapped version, like the footage going into the AVP via this pipeline will be the dual fisheye thing.
So it's not an equirectangular image.
It is not yet.
Okay.
And so everything included, the unwrapping data is all coming from the calibration that was done at the factory that is baked into the metadata of the B-RAW file. So the instructions for how to correctly unwrap the footage per the particular set of lenses in that particular camera
is all metadata.
Gets fed via metadata all the way to the AVP, which then unwraps it.
Does that save you time?
It saves a lot of time and it saves a lot of quality.
Well, and
so
I was also
that's including like things like you can have an editing timeline with transitions, and it just feeds both videos and the instructions for the point and which type of transition to the headset, and the headset does it.
Well, and also this camera is also capable of live streaming, so some of this stuff you can do in real time. So you could add effects.
I don't know about that.
So
Like
I think there
100?
was some. I watched some narrative on this, which is that there are going to be some effects that you'll be able to enable in real time that happen in DaVinci, which will feed through to the camera to be able to be live streamed.
Yeah, I mean that would be because you have all the 10G Ethernet feeds. You could and you can get a live feed of the camera via 10G. So I could definitely see that like using DaVinci Resolve would become like a switching hub basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it makes sense because a lot of in the new
That's why it's at the NAB.
DaVinci Resolve 20 beta, they implemented a bunch of new live switching features into the new version of Resolve.
So more like party balloons coming at you, more like fun cat face emojis.
Yeah.
Well, and you were telling me the other day that that's sort of how Apple's camera stack works.
So even
this was interesting nuance that I think is really important.
Yeah, and it's something I only recently learned about. When you make an edit on your iPhone, whether it's to a photo or a video, it is also just metadata until you share it with somebody who's not.
So until you flatten that image.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why you can go back to a photo that you edited 2 years ago and just hit undo and revert back to the way it was because none of the changes are destructive. And so
it's until you export that video and send it to me, an Android user.
Right. Then it's got to do a little bit of processing so it can flatten the video or the photo and send it out.
Yeah.
Which does also save time.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty is it's non-destructive. So it's, you save time, but you're also not, every time you do a conversion, you're losing some quality. So by leaving it pixel perfect all the way until the end user and the end user's unwrapping it, that's pretty mind-blowing.
This is a chain of custody of edits.
Yeah, basically. Like, you're just sending instructions, which, again, is what the iPhone does with these things. It's just a set of instructions, but not actually doing, like, transforming the media, which just really goes to show how powerful the AVP itself is, that it can do all this stuff in headset in real time.
It's better than Bitcoin.
So it seems like a lot of this implementation is also DaVinci itself, and that DaVinci has sort of, which is interesting because up until about a couple years ago, there was no baked-in VR support in DaVinci.
Right.
Like they didn't even have a awareness of VR 180. We have to just treat it like a.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're using tools that somebody else made, Andrew Hazelton, shout out.
Cardiverse.
The VR stuff, like using a lot of the tools he's developed that are just plugins that you download and install, and they work, but like it's not nearly as efficient as if it had been written.
And like when I first because I made some 3D titles that like flew at you. Right. In Fusion, I literally had to just create two cameras and sync them and then align them. But it was so hacky, and if I had messed up one of those nodes, the entire thing would have broken.
You were not pleased with your.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it hacking.
No, I was not. I mean, it just made it so much harder to be able to iterate because I'm not super familiar with Fusion.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like it's not hacky. It's actually like it's ironically the best way of doing it now that I've done it.
Sure. Yeah. It felt hacky at the time
because it's truly it feels weird, but like it works better. Like you're getting truer 3D by doing that because you're literally setting the IPD and everything of those two camera lenses. That's in your virtual environment, so you can match the camera that you're shooting.
But now it seems DaVinci saw an opening in the market and was like, let's just be.
I mean, I don't know that. I think they're probably getting there's a Apple partnership here at work because I don't think they would.
Do you think that they were approached by Apple?
It's possible. I'm not entirely sure because Apple has their own camera tech that they bought from John, right?
But they don't have the same kind of brand like loyalty trust around the product. Like VR Blackmagic it's a post-production playground, and Apple I think that's just for enthusiast kids and like and their little siblings.
Well, it's an interesting move for Apple because traditionally Apple is all about that vertical integration. So
they have their own video editing software.
They have
Final Cut.
Right, but it's not as professional a tool anymore. It used to be, but like when they redid a Final Cut like 10 years ago or whatever it was, into something
FCPX.
It was Final Cut Pro 10 that like everybody's like, what is this iMovie Pro? A lot of folks that I knew, like they really created a lot of Adobe users out of
it made you look really like in comparison to someone working on Adobe in the same editing suite. Like literally, you didn't know they're like Is this wide rule?
FCP, Final
Sorry,
Cut
wide
Pro.
rule is a great way to actually. I'm not saying if you use wide rule that's the point. It's like wide rule is just as good, but it looks like Apple like kind of went too simple in it, and it made folks who think that you need something incredibly complex to do something of quality look. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
Well,
but this does that. It bridges the gap between
the big issue with that, to be clear on the FCP thing, was that they removed all the tools that professionals were using and dumbed it down. So it's not so much that they like just repackaged it. They removed things that pros were using.
I was working on a
like,
project.
It destroys your workflow, right? You can't be a professional editor in that suite anymore.
I was working on a project where we were using Final Cut Pro when 10 was released.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
we had a big discussion about, well, we're not going to move to the next version of software because it destroyed all the tools that we were currently using.
You can't go back. Like like everyone has to move up, and not everyone wants the license.
Well, I mean, you can hang on to the old one for a while,
right?
But like eventually you have to. Like they'll just deprecate it, and certainly now, like you're not going to have M chip support on the old version.
It's like the Rapture, like you're in or you're out. But this is different. It's Blackmagic. It's open source.
So it is interesting that they like looked at another company with better expertise in both camera and editing software and said, "Y'all do it."
They probably realized that their has couldn't do it.
I mean, it's smart, right? Instead of reinventing the wheel, just get somebody that has the sensor tech, and like these are basically, we say they're 8K per eye, which is what they're generating, but they're the new 12K sensors that.
And it's all on one frame, or on one sensor. That is.
No,
it's not.
It's two sensors. It is two sensors that are gen locked together.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. It's two 12K sensors that are producing.
That's why it looks so cute.
Two 8K images.
I didn't realize it was.
They're just saying 8K because when you're looking at the fisheye version, you're throwing away a lot of the Ks, basically.
Yeah.
30,000. That's
yeah. So it's two full frame 12K sensors is what.
It's like a cool motorcycle.
So it's got to have a very, very advanced version of Genlock then, because
I mean it's probably not. I'm using Genlock in more of a generic term. I bet they're like tied together on the circuit level.
Yeah.
So that they're just
because there had been some
the Z-Cam. The Z-Cam was a nightmare. The Z-Cam.
Well, and also I heard some back in the day. Hugh had talked about even with cameras that were Genlocked, there was frame mismatch.
Yeah, you still end up with a frame. I mean, even we've seen several of the newer, like sort of pocketable type cameras that have two cameras in them will drift one from the other on occasion. It's one of those things that like, but again, I think Blackmagic doing what they're doing here have probably like the K1 Pro was basically two Z cams in the same body.
Yeah.
Genlocked, I think literally Genlock technology. So they would drift, and often.
They also had different. They had different. I noticed one time. I think it was a bug in the software. They had two different color temperatures.
Yeah, that's
completely different color temperatures.
What I was about to say is that like I've been in there. Like we've shot an entire project using the app. Went in and set the color temperature and ISO, and it only affected one of the lenses. And so we get the footage back, and we're like, well, one of them's over here, one of them's over there.
Yeah, so we had to go in and match the footage.
No, we couldn't use it. We just couldn't use it.
Yeah,
because the exposure, one was completely underexposed, one was completely overexposed. It was.
Do you think this means if we in the future, if our supporters support us enough, we can get one of these and live stream one of these shows?
Yeah, I mean the other big thing that you need though is great bandwidth.
Yeah, huge bandwidth, absurd bandwidth. Because
it has to be compressed. Like this pipeline won't work as it is live. It has to be encoded down into like AV1 or something. Granted, with this, I mean, with DaVinci and the Apple pipeline, you use MVHEVC, which is even more efficient than AV1.
But someday when James Cameron...
I mean, live streaming with these cameras, it would require significant infrastructure. Like, you would have to make sure that you're on a 10 gig network. Yeah. Minimum.
Yeah. Like, I mean, well, yeah, exactly. Or if you're trying to live stream to the internet, that's just not going to happen. So you would have to... So not in this pipeline, it would be like, could you encode it down and then keep the metadata pipeline, but then you're only serving to AVPs?
Yeah. Like I'm not going to say it couldn't happen. I think it could happen, but it would require a lot of...
Yeah, we're just not there yet.
Yeah, a lot of tech that you would need to develop or find the people, because there are people who do like these types of live streams.
We're just not South Korea yet.
Like they do exist. You just need to sort of Voltron them together into one place.
Right.
And currently the industry doesn't have a lot of infrastructure for that, but there are people who are trying to make it happen. And there are companies that are trying to make it happen, but none of them have really come to market yet.
Yeah. People are claiming that they will. Anyway.
Yeah.
I keep seeing like, oh, we finally cracked it. Join the wait list, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's finally here, but you're gonna have to wait.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the truth of the matter is that this camera is most likely going to be the industry standard probably for the next 10 years, I'm guessing.
I would guess, because it's going to take a while for, like, obviously adoption to happen because it is so expensive. But it's not crazy expensive in terms of
what you're
the
getting.
caliber of what it is. And the caliber of cameras. You know, so there's a lot of people complaining about how expensive it is. I'm like, that's what it takes to get truly good footage, though, right? I mean,
well, and this is not this isn't even a prosumer camera. This is a professional camera made for professional tools. So here's the thing though, like to be able to even work off of this camera in post-production, you're going to need an extreme storage solution.
Yeah. I mean, unless you just work directly off the modules that are in it. So to that end, I forgot we didn't mention this. At 8 terabytes, 8K per eye, 90 frames per second, using BRAW's 12:1 compression ratio.
What is it?
It's an hour and like 23 minutes that you can record on 8 terabytes.
Oh my god!
I mean,
that's insane.
That's a
how
lot.
How much is this?
It is. Sorry.
It's like 1 terabyte an hour, right?
Our podcast is
just under. Yeah, it's like 55 minutes a terabyte, basically.
And we're like a half
so that
hour
is
to 40 minutes.
1/8, about 1/8 of the storage time.
It's the fact that because we're doing 8K total, so if you double the resolution, and then 50% more frames per second.
Good lord. Yeah.
So
I mean that's it.
We need 30 grand.
Yeah. Well, we need a lot more than 30 grand. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, start small.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to get a fleet of these at some point.
Yeah, we've got some ideas that would require at least 3 of them.
Yeah. More on that later.
Yeah. But impressive tool that we're really stoked to play with. But there's not, the features aren't even in DaVinci yet. They're
still in beta, and
even
they're
DaVinci
only rolled
20
out to like a few
beta
people.
This is like pre-beta.
They're probably like handing you like an install that they've been working on.
That's included
for the people who get the camera.
Yeah, exactly. You probably get like a download key.
And they're probably like, hey, you're our bug testers now.
Yeah, right. Because they're still saying that like they're working on even more features.
Well, and essentially how this rollout goes is for anybody who bought this camera, they had to, who are getting the units now, they had to tell them exactly the projects they were going to be shooting with them next.
Right. Yeah.
Because they want to control what that footage looks like, because it's going to be effectively their
main advertising.
First impression.
Exactly. The first impressions of the camera for the people that are using it right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Blackmagic's always kind of been a first mover in this realm. Like, bug testing, I think, is a way to put it. But when you pay $30,000 for a product, don't you expect customer service to, like, really...
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be... And it's not even officially out yet, right? It's still just on pre-sale.
Yeah.
So it's
literally the first cameras are starting to get into people's hands right now.
Yeah. So it's a... there probably will be quite a bit of hand-holding at the beginning.
I'm guessing there's probably only 1 or 2 of them out in the wild at this point.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. So okay, that's it. We got to run. This is a short one today, but I think the Ursa Immersive stuff is huge. The Ivory stuff I'm pretty excited about. I think I will pick up a PSVR 2. And that's it for Stereoscope Podcast
Peace
number
out.
13.